and it went over to the deer and it started to drag the deer away. Well, Joe laid there playing dead. The bear didn't want Joe. Joe was just the threat. Deer alone anymore in brown bear country. Number two is that I always wait until those bears go into hibernation. When the first snows hit, those brown bears will go up to the tree line and they'll den up, and that is a far safer time to hunt. So when I've been out hunting, and I've hunted deer, black-tailed deer on Admiralty Island, I don't hunt alone. I wait until snowfall, which pushes a lot of the deer down the mountain to the ocean side. But when I'm out, I'm always watching. You're always alert, because bears don't all think and react the same way. Yeah, most of them probably went up to hibernate, but there's always that one individual that says, you know, I haven't had enough to eat. It's snow on the ground, but I'm still gonna get a good meal. And those bears are smart. When they hear rifle shots on Admiralty Island during deer season, they don't shy away. They know that there's probably a dead deer from where that rifle shot came, so they start gravitating toward that area. Those bears are so smart, they tagged some bears and they found them gravitating toward the sound of boats beaching on Admiralty Island, because they know that hunters are going to be getting off, they're going to be going hunting, and those bears know that they're either going to have a pile of deer guts or a dead deer somewhere. Hunting in Southeast Alaska is an exercise in being alert every minute you're out in the woods. The gravel bars on the rivers are landing strips for those planes. When we were getting taken out of our caribou camp at the end of our week of hunting, there had been rain the previous day, just a little bit of rain, but it's enough to make the river rise, and we were the last passengers out. The gravel bar was getting shorter and the pilot came in, landed just a wee little bit short, splashed down in the water before hitting the gravel bar. So when I talk about living off the land in Alaska, there are communities that are isolated that still maintain a subsistence style way of life. Will provide, one young moose will provide about 280 pounds of cut, wrapped, and frozen food. So moose are very important. You might, in some of these small towns in Alaska that we're visiting, you might see an old beat up pickup truck with a bumper sticker that says, "Eat more moose, 10,000 wolves, can't be wrong." Other important species, muskox. Muskox are important not only for meat, but for the wool they produce. They produce a thick underfur in the winter that is shed in the spring, and people will gather up that underfur. They'll spin it into yarn. If there are any knitters in the group, that's the yarn called kiviot. If you go into a yarn shop, they'll often have yarn on display in a locked glass case. That's kiviot. It's very expensive, very soft wool, very exclusive. Doll sheep, which I was hunting for in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, are another important animal to folks that live in the villages. Caribou, of course. Mountain goats. One of the first places we'll have an opportunity to see mountain goats is in Juneau today. Just ahead of the ship, there's Mount Robert Barron on the right. Just ahead of the ship, Mount Juneau, dead ahead of us. If the clouds don't obscure the top of Mount Juneau, if you have binoculars, take a look up there, and you may see mountain goats. The other place to see mountain goats is when we'll be in Endicott Arm on Saturday. Harbor seals, fur seals, even whales, bowhead whales. There are 11 villages on the Arctic and northwest coast of Alaska that are allowed to hunt bowhead whales. They're allowed 65 strikes, which amounts to about 55 whales being taken, which is only 1/10 to 1/2 of 1% of the entire bowhead whale population. But those whales are pulled ashore. It's a tradition. That whale meat and blubber is shared with everyone in the village. Beluga whales are also on the menu for these whaling villages as well. And then shellfish, about 6% shellfish. These are king crab, and this is a somewhat of an ironic photo. When I first got to Alaska in 1992, man, I just fell in love with fresh crab and fresh shrimp. Oh man, it was so good. And then after a couple of years, I noticed my fingers started swelling when I was cleaning the crab. And we boiled up some shrimp one dinner, and I asked my wife, I said, why did you put pepper in the shrimp? And she said, I didn't put pepper in the shrimp. Well, my throat was starting to get very irritated. I developed a shellfish allergy. So I don't know how many hundreds of dollars worth of king crab legs that we have there. I didn't enjoy one of them, although my wife still enjoys crab. So king crab, Dungeness crab, shrimp. We have places where shrimp are very abundant, a whole cooler full of shrimp tails. And then my daughter and son-in-law were bringing their shrimp back from their shrimping area when one of the cruise ships goes by. Birds, about 6 pounds. We have spruce grouse, ptarmigan. This is a willow ptarmigan. If there are any Alaska trivia contests on board, the willow ptarmigan is the state bird. We also got ducks and geese. Sandhill cranes can be harvested in Alaska, as well as tundra swans, and those provide both meat and feathers to folks in the rural villages. And then plants. Alaska is a berry paradise. I mean, this is a high bush cranberry that I grew up with in the upper Midwest, but there are berries that I'd never encountered before. Lingonberries. When the moose hunting is slow, I'll often pick a gallon or two of lingonberries up in the interior of Alaska. Makes great jam. Soap berries. There are yellow salmon berries, red salmon berries, crowberries is another one. And then spruce tips. Now, spruce tips aren't unique to Alaska, but folks here in Alaska really seem to take advantage of it more than anywhere else in the country. Those spruce tips are eaten fresh. They're high in vitamin C. They're steamed. They're turned into tea. My wife and I made spruce tip jelly. One year we picked a bunch of spruce tips, and it's not spruce tasting at all. Oh, if you're a canner, that's a lovely sound. It's a very mild citrusy flavored jelly. But I think one of the best uses of spruce tips is in spruce tip blonde beer. We get to Skagway. The Skagway Brewing Company has a spruce tip blonde. It's a really excellent beer. Whenever I get into Skagway and get off the ship, I head for one of those spruce tip blonde beers just to go, oh, that's wonderful. So anyway, highly recommend it. It takes 30 hours of fishing to catch one king salmon, and that's when they're biting. So that first hour we trolled back and forth, not a bite. After 2 hours, we'd pretty much run out of topics of conversation. After 3 hours, I was out of coffee. In 4 hours, I was about out of patience, about to tell Marge, let's give it up, go back and have lunch, give it a try again tomorrow. But before I could get those words out of my mouth, Marge's fishing line bent over, double the line, starts screaming off the reel, Marge, you got one, set the hooks. She snatched up that rod, she set the hook, and that fish started running. Marge would reel it in 50 feet, and that fish would run 75. She'd reel it in 25 feet, and the fish would run 10. Back and forth for 40 minutes that went on. Finally, she got that fish to within about 10 feet of the boat at Saws, and it took off on a run that Marge couldn't stop. 50 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet, and then her line went slack. Her shoulders slumped, and she looked at me. She says, it's gone. Well, I looked out in the general direction of the last known location of that fish, and it looked like a scene from Jaws with a dorsal fin sticking out of the water, a wave in front of its nose. And no, Marge, he's heading for the boat. Reel as fast as you can. So she really she tightened up that line. Finally, she got that boat, that fish to within about 6 feet of the boat. And I said, Marge, raise your fishing rod up and bring that fish in a little closer so I can get the net under him. But but she was so tired she couldn't raise her fishing rod above her waist. I thought, well, what am I going to do? I thought maybe I could grab her line and pull that fish in a little closer to net it. But one of the things I had learned fishing with Marge over the years was, you do not touch Marge's fishing line. Well, what could I do? Well, I grabbed the landing net by the very end of the handle. I hooked my heels under the boat seat so I wouldn't fall overboard, lunged over the gunnels, landed on my ribs, and oh, did that hurt, but I did get the net under that fish. I pulled it into the side of the boat, gathered the net over that fish, hoisted it up out of the water, and I dropped it on the floorboards between us, and we stood there just staring at 37 pounds of ice-cold, wild Alaska king salmon. So I stepped over the fish. I was going to give her the Minnesota Fishing Guide handshake. Well, beautiful fish, good job. She set down her rod, put a hand on each of my shoulders, stood on her tippy toes, and she gave me a kiss right on the lips. I was in with that family. That fish established our relationship for the rest of our lives. And every chance